Hello and welcome back. If you've got an interview coming up, I have one question that you really need to prepare for. This question can absolutely make or break your impression at the interview. It is the question, what is your greatest accomplishment? Today, I will walk you through how to answer this question with confidence and make a real impact in the interview session. I'll be giving you real examples, proven framework, and great professional tips to help you nail this tricky interview question. This video addresses everyone. So whether you are early in your career, you are in your mid-level or an executive, even trying to switch, from one career or one industry to another, at the end of this video, you will know exactly what to say, how to say it when you are asked this question. So let's go to why does this question matter? It is very important that we understand why this question matters, what the interviewers are looking to get from your answer, so that you can tailor your answer in a way to fit and tick all the boxes. Now, this question isn't just about you bragging. Yes, I know that it's easy to slip into that mode where you begin to brag about all the things that you have done, but this question is aimed in getting these four things. The interviewers are looking for these four things. One, how do you define success? That's the first thing that the interviewers are looking for. Secondly, what do you take pride in? They want to know what you take pride in. And thirdly, your ability to handle challenges, because definitely challenges will come. Challenges will arise in your job and in anything that you're doing. And lastly, how do you deliver results? They want a story that reveals your work ethics, your values, and how you make decisions. So this is your chance to show them the real person behind the CV. How do you structure your answer to this interview question? You can structure your answer to this interview question using either the STAR method or the DIX method, or any method that you're comfortable with. I have made a video titled "The Number One Strategy to Pass Your Interview in 2025," and I will leave that link in the description box so you can pick that video, watch the video, and understand how to use either of this method to answer any interview question if you haven't watched that video. So let's talk about how to structure our interview question using the STAR method. As we well know, STAR is an acronym for situation, task, action, and result. That is the way to answer. It's a method to answer an interview question, and we'll be using the STAR method because it's quite popular to answer this question: what is your greatest achievement? Now, let's keep your story focused and powerful. That's the most important thing. Situation: what was the context? What happened? What was the context of that situation? How did it happen? Task: what was your role in that situation or your objective? Action: this is where you talk about the steps that you took in that situation. And result, of course, what was the measurable impact? You want to be able to state all of this in your story. Let's give an example of a project coordinator, when asked, what is your greatest accomplishment? In my previous role as a project manager, we had some delays and were behind on a very high risk product launch. Timelines were slipping, departments and suppliers weren't aligning. So I have just described the situation. That situation, we're behind on time. We had departments and suppliers that were not aligning. Now let's go to the task. As the project coordinator, I was responsible for ensuring everybody collaborated to get this project delivered 2 weeks ahead of the launch timeline. So there was a task. We need to get this project delivered 2 weeks before time so that we will check if everything was in place and if everything was in order. Action: what did I do? Remember, we had a situation, we were behind time, and we had the task to ensure that we do not just beat time, but we get the task delivered 2 weeks ahead of time. What did I do? I introduced a weekly cross-functional stand up. We built the task tracker in Notion and worked closely with everybody, to ensure that we identified where the roadblocks were. I also streamlined feedback loops between the marketing and engineering team because I realized that that was where we had the root cause of the delay. What was the result? We launched this product 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Internal communications were improved, and we also reused this project workflow for 5 future launches. That was one of my proudest professional moments. Upon reflection, I appreciated the use of initiative, my great leadership style, and improved cross-functional synergy. It showed me that leadership is not all about control, it's about clarity, it's about communication, and making people feel empowered. Imagine setting this out. So I have used the STAR method. I set out the situation, I set out the task, I set out my action, the action that I took, and I set out the results. And I went one step ahead to show what this taught me and what this taught the rest of the team. It is really important that you showcase what exactly the keywords. If you imagine, I use keywords like initiative, leadership, cross-functional, teamwork, synergy, showing that yes, there was a dysfunctional in my team, but at the end of the day, I brought all of this together, used my initiative and leadership style, and we're able to get that flow, into everything. So let's break down what made this example strong. One, it started with a real life challenge, right? Missed deadline, which often leads to increase in allocated budget because you would have to use more budget if you're missing your deadline, right? And also resources, for example, manpower, money, capital, whatsoever those resources are. That is what it is. Secondly, it shows your unique contribution. In this example, I showed my unique contribution. I created system, I improved communication, I ensured that there was teamwork. First, identifying what the roadblock was, and then making things, to ensure we close that challenge, and creating systems, right, that close the challenge. Lastly, end with measurable impact. Yeah, ahead of schedule, as you could hear. We also reused that process for 5 more product launch. So we had other product launches, but we didn't have to create a process again because we had a process that was already working and it worked for them. Let's use another example for an entry level, individual. So if you're an entry level or you're early in your career, let's use this example for you. If you are early in your career, don't worry. Your greatest accomplishment doesn't have to be huge. It just needs to show growth, effort, and results. So let's use a typical example of somebody that is early in their career. While I was at college, I participated in a marketing club that organized our first ever virtual conference during COVID. Of course, as we well know, that everything was on standby during COVID and a lot of virtual conferences came about. Everyone was unsure how to pivot this because we were all used to the in-person, events, and we had no templates to replicate. I suggested that we use Zoom and combine this with social media to build the buzz, and I coordinated and reached out to over 20 speakers. It was a huge success because I heard back from 8 of those speakers and we had over 1,000 attendees. This was double any of the events we had done in the past. We also raised funds for a local charity, down in the community. This experience taught me adaptability, it exposed me to digital communication, and taught me project ownership. These are skills that I now bring into every professional stage or into every professional setting that I find myself. This experience have taught me how to adapt quickly, communicate remotely, and lead under pressure. Skills that I have now been using ever since in every role that I find myself. What you have shown as an early graduate or somebody early in your career is that you can transfer your skills into anything. Transfer those skills that you've had in your personal projects into the professional world. So it doesn't matter whether you are early in your career, whether you are bringing, those achievements that you have done. It's really important that you showcase how you can adapt your skill in whatever space that you find yourself. Let's go to the do's and don'ts when you are answering this question. Let's start with the do's. Ensure that when you're answering these questions that you use examples. Use examples that are real, because that is the only way that it's going to flow. That is the only way that it's going to be natural. But when you are using these examples, choose accomplishments that are relevant to the job that you are applying for. So you use examples like a project scene if you're applying for a project coordinator, or you use examples like when you go out for a campaign if you are in the social media space or whatever. So ensure that you use that, because it creates that synergy and it helps that flow to be seamless and create that impact that you really, really want to achieve. Also, be specific. Don't just say, I'm a hard worker, I'm this, I'm passionate. What impact did your action make? It's very important that you are specific and include measurable results. Did you save time? Did you boost resources? Did you boost revenue? Did you solve a problem? That is very important. Practice your story time and time again. Say it out loud so that it's going to be smooth and you will own it. Even though you've done it, if you don't practice, you'll realize that you are just missing your words and you're not using the right words whenever you're doing that. Let's go to the don'ts. Don't roam about. Set your answer so that you don't roam about, you don't go off topic, and you don't get stuck. That is when you get confused and you cannot put your thoughts together again. Also, don't share too much personal information or things that are irrelevant or unrelated to the role that you're applying for. Here's a strong example for somebody that is transitioning careers. After 7 years in the hospitality industry, I decided to move into retail. My greatest accomplishment was making that leap despite having no experience or background in sales at all. I took some online courses in sales and I started volunteering in a local retail shop just near my house. Within 6 months, I landed myself a full-time role as a retail manager in a big store, and I also brought on board some of my transferable skills, which were great communication skills and excellent customer service. And within 6 months, I led the redesign of the company customer loyalty program, which led to increased customer, repeated customer by 22%. What did this teach me? It taught me self-discipline, curiosity, and persistence. And it shows me that these can take me further than credentials, especially in any industry. Imagine saying this story of how you changed your career and you learned some of these things by yourself. Remember the keywords: career change, self-motivation, transferable skills, right? We also talked about when you had to volunteer, because how would you learn? How would you have those internship skills if you don't volunteer, to do those things that you need to do? Now we've gotten to this point. It is your turn to use the exact formula to craft your own answer. Write out 2 or 3 accomplishments that you've been able to achieve using the STAR method or DIGS method, whichever works for you, and practice them by saying them aloud until you feel natural about it. Don't give up if you do not get it in the first try. Rather, expand on what you've said, think about it thoroughly, and master how this would help you, or how this will be the great answer that you'll be able to use in any interview that you find yourself. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more interview preparation tips. Don't forget to share this with a friend who is job hunting, because it will come handy when they need it, when they get that interview. Comment below and tell me what your greatest accomplishment is using the STAR method or the DIGS method. I would like to hear, and I would like to see your brief answer. Who knows, I could even use it or feature it on one of my videos to help somebody that is in your industry or help somebody that is in your field know how they can tailor their own answers, right? We've gotten to the end of this video. go nail that interview. Bye.